Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Cousin Kate by Christina Rossetti, part of the EdXL Conflict collection. This video is just going to take you through a brief introduction to the poem. I'm going to give you some contextual information and I'm going to take you through the form of the poem. If you want an analysis of the poem, there is another video coming your way, so stay tuned and subscribe if you want to get a notification. But for now, let's get started. Okay, so what is this poem all about? So the narrator, the unnamed narrator, is someone who was a cottage maiden. So it tells us something about her class and her status, but originally she was a maid. So, you know, potentially virtuous and sweet until our Lord came along, represented here by this rather sinister silhouette. So a great lord seeks her out, finds her attractive, and unfortunately has his way with her, meaning that she is no longer a maid. The suggestion is that they have sex outside of wedlock, a source of great shame in Victorian times. And unfortunately, rather than marry her, do the right thing, he spots her cousin Kate, and marries her. So whereas she is left in a place of shame because she's had sex out of wedlock and has then been abandoned by the Lord, her cousin is then elevated to lady status when she marries him. There is a suggestion that the narrator of the poem is quite judgmental of Cousin Kate's decision to marry the Lord, suggesting it's all for money rather than for love. And the poem ends with quite a sort of bitter twist in that she's saying, okay, so you may have married the Lord, but there's one thing that I have that you don't. And it turns out that she has had the son of this noble lord, and the suggestion is that Cousin Kate is not able to produce a son at that moment, but she has. So there's a little bit of a kind of bitter twist at the end of this poem. So let's talk a little bit about Christina Rossetti. So she was born in 1830 and she lived 64 years until 1894. Not bad for the Victorian era. And she wrote this poem in 1860. Now, her name sounds Italian. She was born in England, but her family are Italian. And all writers as well, or within the arts. So some of her poetry, not this one, this is a ballad form, but some of her poetry takes the form of Petrarchan sonnets, which is a very famous Italian form of poetry. So you can see the influence that her family has had on her. Now, this is quite a scandalous poem, especially for someone who was very, very, very Christian, very devout. In fact, sort of married to her faith through her life, because she remained unmarried, and now this is actually quite sad because she was proposed to when she was quite young, I think 18 years old, and she said yes. And their engagement, went on for 2 years until he decided to become a Catholic priest and therefore broke off the engagement. So, you know, she perhaps had a broken heart. And then she was proposed to another 2 times in her life, but she said no both times, preferring to stay single and, like I said, concentrate more on her faith. But one of the things that she was very interested in was the plight of what is called in the Victorian age the fallen woman, i.e. women who have either been shunned by their families because of sexual activity, or women who are prostitutes. And there was a particular house or centre that she used to support, give money to, do charitable works for. So she was very interested in the plight of women. Some people think that she was a feminist, but there's no specific kind of focus on suffragette, but you do see this sort of kinship with women who are in a bad way. And obviously, because we're in the Victorian era, we are in a time where women have very, very little, no rights. They're very much treated as the possession of men, and as we discover in this poem, you know, sex out of wedlock is a real sin, and can result in quite severe consequences. Okay, so just a quick word on form. As always, when you're writing on poetry, you do want to be able to talk about form, not just the type of poem, but the impact of it. So this one is easy to recognize. It is a ballad. It's a very traditional ballad. You can also refer to this as a monologue as well, just simply because it is one voice telling this story. So in typical ballad style, we have an A-B-C-B rhyme scheme that runs all the way through those 6 quatrains. Ballads don't have to be 6 quatrains, this one is, but A, B, C, B is fairly typical. And we have got iambic meter, but the lines range between tetrameter and trimeter. Okay, so I was a cottage maiden, hardened by sun and air, contented with my cottage mates, not mindful I was fair. So the first line is iambic tetrameter, the second trimeter, and again and again and again. You do have some moments where it's not a full foot, so it might be 7 syllables rather than 8. But if you just remember iambic tetrameter and trimeter, and it creates quite a lyrical rhythm, which helps with the sort of storytelling nature of the poem. And so obviously you need to think about why. You know, why has the poet chosen a ballad? Now, ballads were meant to be like oral, as in they weren't meant to be written down originally. And so they normally tell really strong stories. And I think this poem is really, really important that it's told in that way to emphasize the importance of the story, but also the lesson within it. I think it is a sort of a warning of what happens to women, and it is a lesson about the injustice, and there's a real kind of sense of the injustice of the class disparity here, how women of lower class can be exploited by a gentleman. So that ballad form or that monologue form helps to deliver that warning through its storytelling nature. That's it from me. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Do keep your eyes peeled, because another video will be coming up very, very soon, which will have 5 key quotes from Cousin Kate and some really good analysis to help you with your exams. If you want to find that video easily, do subscribe to me, and then you'll get a notification when I have made it. Thank you again, and happy revising.